Hi, welcome to the last day of class. Today we're going to be going over age makeup. So before we get into the application, a few things that you're going to want to keep in mind is first the size of your stage. If you are in a smaller, more intimate theater like Leggett, you're going to want to be a little more subtle with your aging makeup. And if you're in a larger space like Keenan, you can be a little bigger and a little bolder. But it's really hard to gauge that when you're standing in front of the mirror and you're trying to figure out how many wrinkles you need to put on and how heavy you need to go. So you're going to look to your director and to your designer as kind of your gauge. They're going to help you figure out if you need to go heavier, if you need to go lighter. So be sure to get their input if you're doing some aging makeup. The next thing you want to take into consideration is the age of your character, especially when we're working in educational theater, when we're dealing with high school students, undergraduates, graduate students even. A lot of times, as a college student, you are playing characters who are much older than you actually are. So some age makeup may be appropriate if you're a 20-year-old person playing somebody who's 40 years old. But that same makeup application is going to be different if you're a 20-year-old playing a 60-year-old or an 80-year-old or a 100-year-old. There are various levels of age makeup that come into play as we're looking at aging our characters older and older and older. So you want to make sure that you are having a really honest conversation with your director and with your designer and ensuring that your makeup is appropriate for the age that you're playing. We also want to take a look at the character's health status. If somebody is a very healthy 40-year-old, they may need less age makeup than if somebody is a very unhealthy 40-year-old. And, as you kind of get older, that comes into consideration as well. And we also look at socioeconomic considerations. If the play is specifically about a character who has had a hard life, who may have had poor nutrition, who may have had addiction issues, anything that may physically affect their body, that can be reflected in our makeup, and we can use these aging techniques to indicate this particular character's health issues as well. So we can use these techniques for a variety of different things. So these are conversations that the actor is going to have with their designer and with their director, and that's something the actor is also going to do as part of their character analysis. So as you're reading your play, as you're getting into your character, you're really going to work with and figure out where this character needs to be in regards to aging. Oh, goodness. Excuse me. All right, so now that we've got all that taken into consideration, we're going to do just kind of a basic aging up. So we're going to use a couple of basic tools here. We have our makeup brushes, and I prefer these flat brushes when I'm doing age makeup. The smaller flat brush really helps us get a clearly defined line, and the larger flat brush can help us with our highlights. So I like to have two different sizes of brushes. For age makeup, I do prefer to use the Ben Nye or some other stage brand highlight and shadow. You're going to want to choose a pretty bright highlight, something that is going to be much lighter than your skin tone, and you're going to want to choose a shadow that is going to be pretty dark on your skin tone, because what we're going to do is we're going to play with those highlights and those shadows to try to mimic the look of much deeper lines and crevices in the face and on the neck. So we're going to be using those highlights and those shadows. I also like to use my trusty little makeup sponge here. And then the other tool that we're going to be using is a stipple sponge. And you can get these at makeup supply places. If you buy that kind of $65 Ben Nye kit, you get one of those in there. You can get them on Amazon. But it's just kind of a hard little sponge. It has a really open weave, I guess. It's a very open little sponge. And what the stippling does, especially on younger actors who are playing older characters, is that it's just going to add a little bit of texture to your skin. As you get older, your skin naturally loses some of its elasticity. So on younger people, you tend to have kind of firmer, stronger skin. And then as you get older, that skin opens up, your pores open up a little bit, and your skin just gets a little bit more of a texture to it. A really great way for an undergraduate student to look just a little older, if you're playing like a 30-year-old or playing a 40-year-old, and you want to have a contrast between that and a character who may be in their teens or their 20s, is just adding a little texture on the face using your little stipple sponge. That's a really, really great little trick just to kind of make you look a scooch older without kind of going super crazy with all of the lines on your face. So we're going to use this as well. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our brush, and we're going to use our shadow. I like to shadow first and then go in with the highlighter. Some folks prefer to use the highlighter and then go with the shadow. Again, experiment. It's up to you. It's up to personal preference. So we're going to start with kind of the big areas first, and then we're going to go in to the smaller areas. So what we need to kind of take into consideration is the structure of our own face and where our face naturally has indentations that we can accentuate with our shadow and with our makeup. So I'm feeling on my skull, right here underneath my skin, there is a little indentation right here, kind of at the temple. And most folks have this little indentation in here somewhere. On some people it's higher, and some people it's lower. Mine is right here because I can feel it as I'm pressing into my skull. So I am legit going to go in with my little brush, and I'm going to accentuate right into that divot, and I'm going to pull that shadow down and blend it out just a scooch. And I'm going pretty dark here so y'all can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to feel that on this side here. I can feel the top of that little indent. I'm going to go down. This is really hard to do on the computer, y'all. I'm going to go down and blend that down. I like to blend as I go, so I'm going to kind of pull that down with my little sponge here and just blend it out. Dabby dab dab dab, blend, blendy blend blend blend. There we go. There we go. Alright, so we've got that. Alright, next big kind of area I'm going to do is I'm going to sink in my cheekbones a little bit. Before I started this video, I had done a little bit of basic stage corrective, so I already have a little bit of a shadow in here, but I'm going to go in a little deeper because as you get older, your skin, the muscles under your skin, they weaken, they relax, and you tend to get a little bit of a sink in your cheeks. Your cheeks don't look as round and as firm. So I am going to take my brush. I'm going to feel the bottom of that zygomatic arch, that little cheekbone arch right there. And for me, that's going to be right here. And you can feel it make almost like a little L shape from here down to here. So I'm going to find that. And again, I'm going in pretty dark so you can all see what I'm doing. I'm going to do that on this side. I'm going to find that bottom contour of the zygomatic arch. Pull that down. Pull that down. Like that. And now I'm going to kind of connect down like that. Fill that in, and then I'm going to go back and blend that out so it doesn't look like I have a bridge on my face. Same thing here. I'm going to connect that down. Fill that in. Like so. All right, so now I'm going to go back in with my little sponge. I'm going to blend, 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 blend. Dabby dab, dab, dab. Blend, blend, blend. So we just want to lose all of the harsh edges of that. We want it to look as natural as possible. Which sounds ridiculous when you're literally drawing on your face with these lines, but here we are. There we go. All right, so we've got some shadow there, some shadow there. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shadow on the outside of the nostril here. So we want to try to sink in that nose. I'm going to shadow even deeper than I do with my stage corrective on the side of the nose. And we just, basically we're just trying to make our features look a little more sunken in than they are. I'm just gonna give that a little blend. Blendy blend. A little high up there. And now I'm going to do the side of the nose as well. And you can see how that's deepening my nose, making that look a little longer and just a little more sunken in, a little more gaunt. Like so. All right, so the next place I'm going to go is I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to sink in the corners of these eyes just a little bit. We want to try to shadow right in there. We can go in our beauty blender or we can continue to use our brush, and we're just deepening out that little shadow there at the corner of the eye. All right, so now we're starting to make some progress. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to start on the forehead. So this is going to be where we're going to start make some faces. The best aging makeup is going to use the contours of your own face. So as we kind of focus on the top half of our face, you're going to want to raise your eyebrows up really, really high and work with your own natural wrinkles. Because as you act on stage, you're going to be making all sorts of faces. And if those lines don't match up with the way that your face actually moves, it's going to look less natural. So we want to try to raise up our eyebrows and work with our own natural creases here. How many creases, how many lines you put on there, again, kind of depends on what age you're going for. So if you're going for somebody who's a little older, you might want to use all the lines that you have available. If you're going with somebody kind of in their 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you might want to use less of those lines that we have available here. But I've got some pretty deep forehead creases, so I'm going to try to use those to my advantage here. This one's a little weirdly shaped. That's okay. Alright, so once we have our lines on our face, now to help them look less like I have lines all over my face, we're going to blend that down. So you want to go in with your brush and just soften those out. You can go ahead and taper off a little bit so it's not kind of a abrupt end there. We want to keep the integrity of our line. We just want to soften it up and blend it out a little bit. Yep, that's where my lines are. My lines are pretty deep. All right, so the next place we're going to go is we're going to go this little furrow right there. So you can see when you kind of furrow your eyebrows, there are two little half moons right here. You want to find those little half moons on your own face and fill those in. Blend, 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 blend. All right, so next we're going to move down the eye and we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of a bag, a little bit of shadow underneath the eye. So if you're not sleep deprived like me, you might just need to kind of draw these in yourself if you don't have any sort of natural bag. If you have a natural bag or a natural shadow, all you want to do is go in and accentuate that. So you want to start kind of at that shadow, at that corner of the eye, and extend that bag down. that. We're just going to soften that up. Blend that up towards the corner of the eye. And this, we can blend this up a little bit. We can add a little bit of a natural shadow here. Just kind of accentuate that. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to do what's called the nasolabial fold. So if you kind of stretch out your face like this and you have this line right here, this is the line that we're going to accentuate. As you get older, that line, smile line, it will naturally fall into place. So we see this quite a bit in older people. So you can stretch out your face, find where that line is, and fill that in. Want to try to connect up that shading and pull that shading down. Now we're starting to get somewhere. All right, so where we're going to go next is, as you age, the corners of your mouth tend to kind of sink in as well. So if we just do a little bit of shading right here at the corner, pulling that down, that's going to deepen the lips into the face. We can go back and we can do a little bit of crow's feet around the eye as well. Just a little bit of shadow there. And that's going to help sink in those eyes as well. Now we want to make sure that chin gets sunken in a little bit, so we're going to accentuate that top of the chin. Pull that shadow down. And we want to make sure that we're kind of playing with that jawline a little as well. Again, as you age, your skin is losing its elasticity. So a lot of times you see, especially as folks get into their 60s and 70s and 80s, you start to see a little bit of a jowl pop up here on the neck. So you can do your kind of traditional jawline shading, but if you add a little curvature to it, that's going to create the illusion of a little bit of a jowl. And you can play that up or play it down kind of as your character needs it. This is really hard to do in front of the computer. Can't see what I'm doing to save my life. We're going to try that over here. Oops, that was way too high. There we go. I'm just going to go in. I'm going to use my little beauty blender. I'm going to pull that up a little bit. Like so. And then as you're making your faces, you're going to see where your skin is stretching against your muscles and where you might want to put some more accents that's going to make your makeup look a little more natural. So for me, when I make all these weird faces, I get this divot right here underneath my neck, or on my neck, on the front of my neck. So I think if I go in and kind of accentuate that a little bit, add a little bit of shadow there, that's going to help me pull this down a little bit so I don't just look like a person with makeup like right on my face. You want to try to pull this look down if you can. You want to try to add it to the neck as well. So we're just going to go ahead and add a little bit of shadow right there. Pull that down like so. Now I could probably do a little bit on the sides of the neck as well, but I'm not going to go too crazy tonight because it's late. All right, so I'm just going to go in and touch up some of these shadows here, and then we're going to go in with our highlight. So anything that we have shadowed, we're going to want to go in and add highlight on top of. So our highlight is going to make these shadows pop out a little more and make them look a little more realistic. There we go. So we've got some good blending here. Got some good blending here. I'm really digging what's happening here on the nasolabial folds. That's making me pretty happy. Forehead wrinkles are honestly the hardest bit. I'm honestly not terribly good at them. I don't have to do a lot of old age makeup. I tend to get cast in my age range, so I don't practice this as much as I should. Meow. Kitty cat's meowing at the door. Alright, so once we're at a relatively happy place with our shadow, now we're going to move on to our highlight. And our highlight is just going to help these shadows stick out a little more. So again, we're going to highlight on top of our shadow. So we're going to go in with our highlight brush And we're going to help those shadows pop out, and we're going to blend those up. So we don't want to blend down too much into our shadow because then that's going to muddy it up. We want there to be just a little bit of a pop of a highlight on top of our shadow. There we go. And do that on top of our forehead. Like that. Blend that into place. And we're going to go in and we are going to highlight on top of all of our shadow lines. You can see how that really helps make them pop, and it gives them a lot of dimension. So by working with the way that our own face is structured, and then highlighting and shadowing, we're really helping create the illusion of more structure on our face. Achoo, excuse me, good grief. There we go. Gonna do a little bit above our little eyebrow lines. Oh, there's the dog. And now I'm going to try to do this on the computer. We're going to highlight above our forehead lines. And that is just going to give these lines a lot of texture and a lot of dimension. And this really does take a lot of practice. This is why there are people who make their living doing nothing but makeup. Everybody's upset in this house right now. And for this, I'm going to highlight just underneath this little divot and over on top of it as well. Now I'm just going to go back in, going to clean up anything that I feel like wants to be a little bolder. I don't know if y'all can hear, but the cat is desperate to get into this room right now. And I think I want to accentuate these crow's feet just a little more. And then I'm going to highlight those crow's feet just a little bit, make them pop. And I'm going to call that done for the night. All right, so the last thing that you want to do, we talked about going in with our stipple and just adding a little bit of texture. I like to do that last. And so you want to use your little stipple sponge and use your shadow. And we're just going to get some makeup on the end of that stipple sponge. And we're going to just add a little bit of texture across some areas of the face where there tends to be a little more wear. So I'm going to do it across the cheeks, across the nose. It also helps kind of blend things in and look a little more natural. You don't want to detract from the work that you've done, but it just adds a little bit of texture, a little bit of dimensionality, so you look less flat and cartoony. And here I'm going to go in pretty heavy underneath. There we go. Like everything else, I think you could fiddle with it for hours and it still not feel quite perfect. So I'm gonna stop. All right, so those are your basics. After you have your makeup in place, you're going to want to use some sort of a translucent setting powder. Make sure that it is set. You can also use one of those spray sets. Those can come in really, really handy. I just want to make sure all of your hard work isn't going to come off the minute you go under those big, terrible, hot stage lights. There we go. All right, so that is your basic old age makeup. I'm going to go ahead and post a PDF that has step-by-step. The PDF that I'm going to post has you doing the highlights first and then the shadow. I prefer to do the shadow first and then do the highlights, but kind of the areas that you focus on are going to be the same. So you just kind of flip them around, play around with it, do what you like. Let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing y'all aged up. All right, have a good night.